Hi, my name is Sophia DeFonso, and I am a first-year student at Santa Clara University. I am from the Monterey Bay, but originally I was from the Santa Clara area. I am part of Cindy Chavez Swenson's Critical Thinking and Writing 2 class. Last quarter, I was a bioengineering major. However, this quarter I have made a sharp turn and switched to communications. I am so excited to start my pathway in the communications department at Santa Clara University during the spring quarter. I feel as if communication majors get a bad rap because people think it is super easy and a major where you will not be able to get a job. I am hoping to prove everyone wrong. I can't wait to start learning about topics I love in an exciting and engaging way. I hope that with this degree, I can work in some sort of sport broadcasting environment or in public relations. I would now like to present my poster board. For our final project, we were instructed to create a written case study and coinciding poster board. Our subject focus was Know My Name by Chanel Miller. The purpose of the case study was to evaluate emotional responses to traumatic events such as Chanel Miller's. Abstract. In this case study, I plan to evaluate the themes within the novel Know My Name by Chanel Miller and relate them to topics regarding the emotional response to traumatic events. In Know My Name, Miller recalls and explains a life-changing traumatic event that she experienced in her early adulthood. This case study will deep dive into the horrific situation that Miller went through and compare how her response to this event may have relation to previously studied accounts of emotional responses in similar situations. In this particular scenario, the phrase emotional responses to traumatic events entails post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, psychological trauma, abuse, triggers, anxiety, and mental health. Based on prior research, it was determined that emotional, psychological, and other long-term reactions were linked to traumatic events. This was prominent in Chanel Miller's experience. Due to Miller's traumatic incident, she without a doubt went through mental and psychological side effects, and she lost her sense of identity. It is important to note that exposure to such traumatic events can have a lasting negative effects on the victim. The purpose of this case study is to illustrate how the varying situations that people go through can impact people in different manners. And some keywords that really sum up my case study are sexual assault, trauma, PTSD, anxiety, and finding a new purpose. Background. The novel Know My Name, a memoir written by Chanel Miller, tells her meaningful story of growth with a chilling situation for the reason behind it. Miller was a college graduate living in Palo Alto, California with her family. One night, she had decided to go to a fraternity party at Stanford with her sister and a friend. This is where Miller's life took an unexpected turn after the events of just one evening. Miller had blacked out from alcohol consumption at the party she was at. Later in the night, two people found Stanford student and swimming athlete Brock Turner assaulting Miller's unconscious body as she lay on the ground in the back of the fraternity house. The two bystanders stopped the situation by calling the police on Turner, and as a result, he was arrested. Miller woke up in the hospital where she was confused and felt lost in her own body. The police and media gave her the name Emily Doe in order to protect her identity during the trial against Turner. Miller was left feeling shameful and guilty, and she lost her sense of identity and belonging. During this time, she was shocked and disgusted by the fact that Turner was being offered forgiveness by many for being intoxicated, while she was ridiculed for being intoxicated. She was subject to the unfair and broken justice system of America through the twisting of her words and wishes. After being found guilty, Turner was sentenced to only 6 months in the Santa Clara County Jail, and he was released on good behavior after 3. This is just one example of a case where a perpetrator does not receive adequate punishment and a victim does not receive adequate support. In order to gain support, Miller wrote a 28-page impact statement where she noted the emotional damage and trauma that Turner's actions had put her through. At his sentencing, she read the victim impact statement to Turner, and he did not once look at her. Her emotional words began by stating, "You don't know me, but you've been inside me, and that's why we're here today." Although she was livid when his sentence was cut short, her case was able to permanently change laws in California. First, any case where an unconscious person is being penetrated requires a 3-year minimum sentencing. Also, the judge who determined Turner's sentence, Aaron Persky, was revoked as a judge in Santa Clara County due to his unjust sentencing. Mentally, Miller was able to find a form of healing when writing her memoir. Before the end of the trial, she felt as if she was living a double life. After the trial and while she wrote her memoir, Miller described her feelings of healing as growing into her own limbs. She was becoming herself again. Miller explained that a large part of healing that victims encounter comes with freeing themselves from the shame that their persecutor has brought to them. Miller learned to be herself again and not feel as if she belonged to Turner. Through the writing of her memoir, she was able to escape the identity of Emily Doe, and people recognized her for who she was by knowing her name. Evidence and data. In the case study titled Differential Effects of Emotional Stimuli on Performance on Verbal and Facial Priming Tasks and their relation to PTSD symptoms in girls with intrafamiliar sexual abuse, the connection between child sexual abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, was researched. The study notes that adults who suffered from PTSD have the tendency to recall discomforting or life-threatening events rather than pleasant ones. The authors noted that in pre-adolescent females, 38.3% of sexual assault cases are done by family members and 46.3% by acquaintances. Aside from PTSD being a part of the aftermath of sexual assault, it has also been proven to cause chronic stress, which affects the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis of the brain, or HPA axis. This can change and impact the development of the hippocampus, amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and temporal and occipital lobes, causing negative neurological effects down the road. The authors defined PTSD as the re-experiencing of aspects of the abuse triggered by a remarkably wide range of external or internal stimuli that have no semantic connection to the trauma, but are spatio-temporally linked to the event. They note how certain shapes, smells, lights, voices, emotions, and touches can trigger someone's PTSD. The study gathered girls from foster care homes that were ages 9 to 16. Some of these girls had been raped or abused by their stepfathers, stepbrothers, fathers, brothers, uncles, clients of mothers who were prostitutes, and teachers, and some had not. In order to test if these girls had signs of PTSD, they were shown various words, emotional and non-emotional, and faces displaying different emotions. They were asked to rate, remember, or forget certain words. As for the faces, they were told to say whether the picture was depicting a male or female. The results showed that the girls with PTSD or a past involving sexual abuse had trouble recalling the positive words that they were told to remember, but they were able to quickly recall the trauma-related words that they were told to forget. the girls who were exposed to the acts of sexual assault had higher intensity of PTSD symptoms. And on the poster board, there is, under evidence, there's the 4 little graphs, and the X's represent the girls who had experienced PTSD and had experienced sexual assault but were thought to have PTSD, and you can see that like all of their rates during the study were higher, and all of the X's are at higher levels than the other shapes. A second piece of evidence titled Share of Students Experiencing Non-Consensual Sexual Contact Since Entering College in the U.S. in 2019 by Gender and Class shares statistics regarding the sexual assault among college students. And that graph is right under data and results on the poster board. The graph shows that overall, women experience the highest percentage of sexual assault cases next to LGBTQ members, while men experience the lowest. 16.5% of female freshmen reported having gone through some form of non-consensual sexual contact by their senior year. And by their senior year, 32.8% of women reported the same thing. This relates to Know My Name due to the fact that it shows how rape culture in college settings is normalized. Rufalin, also known as roofie, or the date rape drug, is common on college campuses and in the party scene. Although Miller was not roofied, it shows the urgency of the situations occurring within universities. Women can also be targeted by being offered drinks at parties. When severe intoxication occurs, it can lead to non-consensual interactions and sexual assault. Regardless, in every situation, intoxication does not make sexual assault accepted or okay. Analysis. The findings from these pieces of evidence relate to Chanel Miller's experience in Know My Name because they displayed the lifelong negative impact that Miller is forced to tolerate and live with because of Turner's actions on that one night. When Chanel chose to have her identity remain unknown, she felt distant and cut off from her family, friends, and boyfriend. Her biggest support system seemed to vanish even though they were all still a part of her life. She felt drained, scared, confused, and not herself. Her identity and sense of being had been viciously ripped away from her. Miller explained how even after she told her loved ones that she was Emily Doe, their support was not enough to heal her. She felt as if she had become Emily Doe, while at the same time, she was not even close to her at all. Emily Doe was a connection of ideas, like pictures, evidence, and words. Miller felt consumed by this second identity, and it brought her back to the traumatic events she experienced. For Miller, the trauma came after her assault when she was forced to read hate comments and watch the trials where it seemed as if all hope for her freedom and sanity was lost. As for the statistics displayed, Miller's situation is similar because by their senior year of college, over 1/3 of women had reported some form of sexual assault. Since Miller was a college graduate, it is not likely that she had, per se, a higher chance than anyone else of being a victim of sexual violence. However, her intoxication could have made her vulnerable in specific circumstances. It is never a survivor's fault for being intoxicated at a party. Women should be able to have fun and enjoy themselves with their friends at a party just as a man does, without having to worry for their safety or about being taken advantage of. When carrying out research for this case study, the main goal was to find articles and pieces of evidence that related to Know My Name by illustrating the lasting effects of sexual violence on its victims. I also attempted to find sources that displayed the prevalence of sexual assault within college campus settings. The purpose behind my inclusion of the first case study by Garcia Leon and Sans Martin was to show how PTSD and other psychological issues are common among survivors of sexual assault. In particular, it demonstrated the chemical changes in the brain that can occur as a result of sexual trauma. The other included statistics were meant to show the increasing number of cases of unwanted sexual contact at the university level. Both of these pieces of evidence work together to highlight the purpose of Miller's memoir. I believe that she had two main purposes when writing Know My Name. First, to exhibit the trauma that comes with any situation similar to hers and the negative